Hello everyone, I'm Christina with The Turned Leg, and if you're new here, welcome. I have been a booth owner for over 10 years, and on this channel I share tips and tricks for booth owners. I take you thrifting. I show you kind of what it takes to get items I find to my booth and ready. So I'm so glad you're here. One of you asked me on a video a while back, what were the biggest mistakes you made? And I have to admit, the minute I got the message, I was like, that's pretty personal. You know, I don't know if we want to talk about all my mistakes. Shouldn't we talk about like the things I'm doing right or how to be successful? But the more I got to think about it, the more I thought this is an important topic that we need to talk about, because if I tell you the mistakes I made, maybe some of you, especially the new booth owners out there, or even the people who've been doing it for a while, it'll help you to prevent making the same mistakes. We're also going to do something a little bit different here. I am going to show you a really cool project that I got from a member of my junk army. Check out this hutch that I was able to save. Now, when I got the piece, I have to tell you, it had been in storage for a bit. The paint was just so worn, and it even cleaned up. It really didn't help the piece. It had been painted 100 coats, maybe not 100, but a bunch. So I decided I was going to give it a new coat of paint, but I didn't want it looking new. So stay tuned for the progress, the makeover, and the final beauty shots as I put this piece into my booth at Plaza Antiques. You are going to be shocked how good this piece turned out. It's really one of my favorite pieces lately. I have quite a few mistakes I have made. I am so far from perfect. None of the mistakes that I mention here today are any particular order, but the first one is probably one that many of you can relate to, and that is when I first started with my booth over 10 years ago, I really didn't have many smalls. In fact, I considered myself someone that saved furniture. I love to save old pieces. I love to make them pretty. And I thought I could just have a furniture booth. Maybe a few little tiny things I did, but I didn't really think smalls were so important. Now, if you're new to that term, I'll give you a definition. Smalls are pretty much small items in an antique booth. Things that you can kind of carry in your hands and are usually fairly inexpensive. Obviously, there are some exceptions to the rule, but smalls are so very essential. They are so important because stocking your booth with smalls is really the key to making your rent. I was shocked by this. I thought, well, if I sell a piece of furniture, I'm golden, right? But the smalls sometimes can pay the rent when you are not selling anything big. People always seem to have, a couple dollars for something. They can find room to put something tiny in their home. Smalls are so essential. Another thing to consider, as I've been doing this for a while, is extra small things. I really didn't think like items under $5 would really be worth my time, maybe packaging or pricing, because usually they're pretty tiny. But there have been so many times when I have been grateful for the extra small things, the individual old photographs, or the little Wade statues, or anything tiny, maybe some ephemeral, maybe some things that are in my bag wall, little tiny items, I would say $5 or less. It is amazing when people think they're getting like a really good deal. Sometimes they load up and they buy a whole bunch. Don't forget about those. Obviously, you have to play around with what works at your booth, what smalls are selling for you, what mini smalls are selling for you, but those are so essential. And I guess in the same vein is another mistake I made was not having enough inventory, just in general. Not just smalls, but just not enough stuff. I really hadn't learned the basics of good display. I didn't know that you could stack some furniture. I didn't know really how to put things on angles so you could fit more items in. I didn't know about bowls and bowl fillers and putting things in and opening up drawers and all of the good stuff. Not having enough inventory is going to hurt your sales because there's not going to be enough stuff for shoppers to look at. If you have more stuff, you're gonna equal more sales, more selection, because honestly, for as long as I have been doing this, I can never predict what the customer is gonna buy. So it's always a good idea to have a wide selection. Sure, I know some of the top favorites and the things that usually sell well for me, but you never know from day to day what people are going to pick up. And as I mentioned, I really didn't know the principles of a good display, which I think is key when you have more inventory because you don't want it to look junky. Luckily, there is a trend right now called maximalism design, and that has really helped, I think, antique and vintage booth owners because people want gallery walls. They want lots of stuff. They want tchotchkes to fill up to make things look pretty. But the key is good display techniques. Putting it all together so it looks like it's something they could just take, put right in their house, and it would be perfect. You know, oh, I should get out grandma's china and then I could add these little things in it and it would really look pretty on my buffet or something like that. The idea of a good display is so important because not only is it going to help you sell your items, it's going to help you put more items in your booth. That's going to equal more sales because a lot of times when customers come in, they're going to go, oh yeah, I want that whole thing because that display is just so pretty. Let's take a look at this hutch. Obviously, when I looked at it, I knew it needed a coat of paint. I was hoping just a cleaning, maybe a little sanding, but that wasn't going to happen. It was just beyond. And when I pick out paint colors, one of the things I like to do is take a look at the colors underneath. Now, there was a lot to choose from here. There was a really pretty blue that stood out. And immediately when I saw it, I started thinking about a line of paints that I love to use, Sweet Pickins Milk Paint. Now, the paints from Sweet Pickins Milk Paint are based on vintage pieces. And milk paint has been used for a really long time. In fact, some of the pieces that you might find out in the wild as you're scouting out pieces are painted in milk paint. So I thought this was a really good fit for this piece. I want it to stay true and authentic to what it would have. And finding that blue color was a signal that that's what it needed to be again. If you've never used milk paint before, I do have videos here on my channel that can show you step by step a little bit more how I do this, but milk paint is a powder-based paint. You are going to mix it up 50-50 with warm water. That is the key. I also like to use an immersion blender so it is nice and smooth to apply. When you get done mixing, you should have the consistency of a melted milkshake. And then I just get painting. Now, I also want to tell you, I cleaned the piece. I did do a little light sanding ahead of time just to prep the piece for milk paint. Milk paint can be a little tricky and difficult at times. So I got really lucky on this piece and how it turned out. I did end up painting 2 coats of milk paint and I let it dry in the sun and I got some nice surprises. So stay tuned for what happened as the milk paint dried. But let's dive back into some more of my mistakes. I think out of all my mistakes, this was my biggest, but I don't know. Comment down below. Let me know what you think the biggest mistake is that people do as booth owners when they're starting out. But one of the mistakes I made was that at my antique mall, there were a lot of seasoned booth owners that had been doing this for a really long time at multiple malls and were making a living doing this. They had a lot of good ideas. I have to say, I didn't take their advice. I was very headstrong. I had ideas about what I was going to do. I mean, I had looked on Pinterest, so I knew how a good antique booth should look, right? No, I was so wrong. And I was so lucky to be in a position where there were people offering to help me. And a lot of times I go, oh yeah, great idea. And then I do my own thing. And soon I would discover, months later, I would circle back around and go, oh yeah, you know that thing you told me to do? I just did it. I probably should have taken your advice. And I think the more I've been a booth owner, the more I learn to listen to the experts or to watch the experts, or to see what they're up to, or to look at beautiful displays and get good ideas, or to travel to other antique malls and see what's good and what can inspire me. By the way, there are a lot of videos here if you want to come along with me and see some other beautiful displays by people that really know what they're doing. Another mistake I made was I thought once I set up my booth, like, it would be magic and people would go, "Oh, Christina has set up a booth," and like the doors would open and people would just storm in. I mean, obviously, you know, I had to make it pretty. I knew that, but I just thought magically people would come to my new space. Now, obviously, I was very lucky to be in an antique mall that had been established, so there was regular foot traffic, but there weren't people just breaking down the door for my booth. You know, even family and friends took a little convincing and reminding, like, "Hey, I have a booth," you know. So it's not going to be automatic. Just because you set it up, just because you build it, they aren't going to come. I think social media and advertising your booth yourself, I know malls advertise and that's fabulous, but I really think it is the dealer's responsibility, if you are trying to do this for a business, to take the initiative, to have some social media, to build the interest, to do the things to get the traffic in the door. And it can seem overwhelming and it can seem difficult. There is a video here on the channel if you want to check that out, if you need a good starting spot. But social media has helped me so much over the years. It has helped me move so many pieces, and I don't think I could have made the sales I've made without it. Another mistake that I made when starting at my booth is I thought it was kind of easier than it is. Now, I have to tell you, if you don't already know, I was a middle school science teacher. I taught 7th graders science. That's like 13-year-olds. And you probably think, "Oh, that was probably the hardest job she ever had." And I will tell you, it was hard, but I loved it. But I will say being a booth owner is pretty darn difficult. It's one of the hardest jobs I have ever had. And it is not a job where you can just set up a pretty booth and walk away if you want to have good, consistent sales. It requires effort constantly. And if you're not doing that effort, there is no way that you're going to make good profit. And it could be just things like coming in and tidying up your booth and closing the drawers that have been opened for the 800th time and left crooked by people looking at pieces, or straightening things. I often feel when I come to my booth that I am picking up like after a party that I wasn't invited for. You know, I'm walking around. It is so important to have a welcoming, pretty booth. It is so important to have it well stocked. If there's a certain area in your booth that is selling really, really well, then you have to make sure you're constantly stocking it with new items. You cannot just think that you're going to set up a booth and come back like 3 months later. I mean, you can do that. You'll probably get sales initially, but I bet as time goes on, the more that you don't touch your booth, the lower the sales will go. And let me know. Comment down below, let me know. But I really feel the minute you fluff, you make your booth pretty, you're going to add new items and obviously promote it on social media too. It's just going to be increasing the traffic and giving you more sales. So this is not a job where you can fix it and forget it. And if you are thinking about becoming a booth owner and that's why you're watching this video and that's kind of your goal, I don't think this is maybe the best job for you. Let's head back to that piece that I have been working on. I have now applied 2 coats and look at the beautiful surprises. Now, sometimes milk paint can chip, but in this case, I got this beautiful crackle. Oh my goodness, I am in love. I'm also seeing some of the white coming back through. This piece would not have all the paint absolutely perfect given its age, right? So the next step that I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab 220 grit sandpaper and my DeWalt orbital sander, and I am going to sand it back to reveal some of the white underneath. I love doing a little bit of distressing. Obviously, if that's not for you, if you're redoing furniture, you can just leave the milk paint as is, but I think for this piece, it's really gonna make it pop. Final step after I'm done sanding is to remove any of the sanding dust, and then I'm going to be adding a top coat. And for this project, I am choosing to use Sweet Pickins top coat. It is a flat top coat, and it really makes the milk paint shine because it doesn't have all that glare and gloss to it. Now, I will tell you, if you are painting with milk paint, the piece gets super chippy. And you're like, oh my goodness, there is so much paint chipping off. I don't want it to chip anymore. Then my recommendation for a good sealer would be a wax over a liquid. If you apply a liquid over Sweet Pickins milk paint, you have the possibility that it could chip more. So just kind of be advised. As I said, if you've never heard about milk paint, I do have a tutorial here. You really should check out because it can be a little finicky, and there's a few rules and tricks I've learned over the years that have helped me get the best turnout of my piece. So I painted 2 coats of the Sweet Pickins top coat, and I let this piece dry. Another mistake that I have made in this business are having all the doubts and just kind of stalling, like spinning your wheels to start. Like I thought I had to be perfect. You know, oh, I have to get all the things, and I have to have the right business card, and I have to have the right logo, and I have to overthink everything I'm doing just to get everything right. And I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, those things are important-ish, but the most important thing you can do is just start. Don't overthink it. Don't worry too much. Those other things you can figure out as you go, but get things in place. Get those social media accounts, get the booth space, get on the wait list, get the items into the booth. Wherever you are at, just do it. Even, start a YouTube channel, whatever you need to do. Looking back now, I keep thinking like, what if I would have done this like 5 years before? Where would I be? Even if I would have started YouTube when I started my booth, oh my goodness, I would have been 6 years earlier, so much further along. It is just wild to think about all those things in hindsight, but I'm grateful for what I did when I did it and that I was following through. And now my big motivation is when I have an idea or when I'm doing something for my booth, I try to just do it. You get those items, get them to your booth as quick as possible. You don't want to wait. You do the pictures. You do a live from your booth. You do whatever you can to keep your business moving forward. So very important. Don't overthink things. Just get started. Another mistake I made, and probably this is not a mistake that everyone here can make, is that as my booth journey went along, I started off with an 8x10 booth, and over time it evolved, and I went to 2 booths in the mall of different sizes and different locations, and then eventually I got a really large area, which is about half of what I have now, on the other side of the mall. And during that time, my little tiny original 8x10 booth kind of became available. And, it had my heart. It's where I started. And I was like, I want it back. I want to do it again. And I thought this would be just great, and I could do some sort of, I thought I'd do vintage kitchen kind of a booth, because that's one of the things I love to do. So I took the booth space back, but keep in mind, it was on the other end of the mall, and I had a huge space I was dealing with, and I was really new to the scale and the scope of it. I have to say that split focus was a huge mistake for me. I should have never just followed my heart. That was not wise business, because I literally would forget about the small space. I would forget to update it. I literally fixed it and forgot it because I was so much busier with the other space, and the other space was pretty much sort of as you walk into the mall. The other one was further back. So the logistics of it really didn't work out. And because I had such a large space, and then that was a tiny one, it just didn't work for me. It split my focus. Now, I'm not saying having more than one booth in the same mall is a bad idea, because I think it's a great idea. I did it for many years. I found it very successful. What was also good about it is I could swap inventory back and forth. I could make changes, but you have to have it so it's reasonable and doable. My space now is double what it was when I was telling you this story. And there is no way at this time that I would do like a smaller booth in my mall. It's just not a good idea for me to be splitting my focus. All of my energy and some needs to be in that big space and making it successful. Really consider if you're splitting your focus. Maybe you think about getting, a booth at another mall and you really don't have the time and energy for that, but don't overextend yourself. Another mistake that I made, and I think this is something we might still be making as far as mistakes, being a booth owner, an antique dealer, is paying too much. There are times when it is a good idea. You find this really cool thing you're not going to find, or it's really large, or it's a statement piece, fine. But paying too much starting out is just a huge mistake. Just because it's cool doesn't always mean it is perfect for your booth. Keep in mind, you make your money as a booth owner when you buy. So as a newbie, if you're overpaying for everything, you're not going to be making a lot of profit. It's all going to be like canceling out, or even worse, you're going to be in debt, which is not a good way to start out. Another mistake I made starting out is when I would buy stuff, especially seasonal items. Like right now, it is fall. It is starting for at least retail fall. Let's just call it fall. It's September. So if I'm buying Christmas now, or I'm buying Easter, I might pack it away. That's great, but I wouldn't take a second or two to price it. And it is so important when you buy, especially the off-season items that maybe you're not taking to your booth right away, to write down your price, because you need to know what you paid, and then you need to figure out what your price is going to be so that you get the right amount of money for what you paid. Otherwise, you'd be like, what did I pay for this thing? I have no idea. Well, I hope this will get me my profit margin. Make sure if you're buying those items, you're not paying too much. Make sure if they're like off season and you're going to be storing them, that you price them before you pack them away. Another mistake that I made, kind of going along with all of this, is not getting things right into my booth. I still probably have a few things, if you were to look around my house, that like, well, why isn't that at the mall? We all do. By the way, this is your reminder. Go around your house tonight if you are a booth owner, and go find like 5-10 things you can take to your booth the next time you go in, because it is just wasting money, right? You're not going to sell the item if it's not in your booth. So go get it to your booth, and make sure you stay tuned for the final big mistake that I made as a booth owner. Let's take a look at this beautiful piece as I take it to my booth. I am so impressed with how this turned out. By the way, if you need any of the paint and products that I used on this piece, you can get them at shoptheturnedleg.com or in my booth if you're local at Plaza Antiques and Collectibles Mall in Lincoln Park, Michigan. The final mistake I made as a booth owner is I really didn't participate in community very much. And by community, what I mean is, even at my antique mall. So at my antique mall, the whole bunch of dealers, we have like a dealer's table. I know a lot of antique malls have this, where people hang out, or even, not even as far as that, but like as you're walking into the mall. At the time, I was working full-time as a middle school science teacher. I'm a single mom. I would like be eye on the prize, go to my booth, do my stuff, maybe quick hi to people and leave. And I really wasn't taking advantage of all of the resources, the people that were there. And I have learned over the years, it is so very important to stop, talk to the dealers, make time. Even when you're overwhelmed and busy, you get great relationships. Maybe you can swap items. Maybe you can learn about things in the antique world you didn't know. You can get tips and tricks, and you can just build the whole community base, which is just good for absolutely everyone. So make the time in your antique mall. If you are lucky enough to have friendly, great dealers, make some time to say hello, chat it up a little bit, talk to the cashiers. Those things are very important to you and your business. But not only that, finding business groups that can support you too, I think that is key. Some of my business groups have helped me so much. One got me started here on YouTube. One got me started with social media. One helped me with my displays and all the things. Those are so important for you. And a lot of people I know starting out are like, I don't really have the money. Like, Christina, I got to do this business thing, and I don't have all this money to be putting down for a group of some sort. It is so helpful. It'll also help you kind of level up. You learn from people who have been where you are, and it helps you avoid making the same mistakes they have, just like this whole conversation here. By the way, if you like information like this, do want to tell you, if you're interested, I have a Booth Owners Business Group, which is a private paid membership group on Facebook. And we meet weekly. We have weekly lives just like this where I'm sharing tips, tricks, and information. So if you want more information on that, you can check it out in the description below or head over to shoptheturnedleg.com to find out more. We would love to have you in the group. What did you think of the furniture makeover for my booth? I think going forward, I kind of have an idea that I want to do more of this because I know many of you are booth owners. And I find a lot of pieces that just need a little bit of love. So I'm hoping to show it to you here, whether it's something I thrift or I find at a flea market or I even rescue as a curbside treasure. I want to show you some simple tips and tricks about how to get it prepped and ready for your booth. If that is something you are looking forward to, please let me know in the comments below that you're excited to see more of that. Also, if you are a booth owner, maybe you're an expert, maybe we need to be listening to you, maybe you are a newbie and you've been learning a few things, let me know if I missed any of the common mistakes or what your mistake was or what you've learned being a booth owner so we can help one another. I hope this video has been helpful for you. Thanks always for joining me. If you like the content, make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. You will get hopefully a notification every time I have a new video. Thank you so very much. Now get out there to salvage, repurpose, and create.